hour later, Lockhart collected in the papers and rifled through them in front of the class. Tut tut, hardly any of you remembered that my favourite colour is lilac. I say so in Year with a Yeti, and a few of you need to read Wandering to Werewolves more carefully. I clearly state in Chapter 12 that my ideal birthday gift would be harmony between all magic and non-magic peoples, though I wouldn't say no to a large bottle of Organ's Old Fire Whiskey. He gave them another roguish wink. Ron was now staring at Lockhart with an expression of disbelief on his face. Seamus Finnegan and Dean Thomas, who was sitting in front, were shaking with silent laughter. Hermione, on the other hand, was listening to Lockhart with rapt attention and gave a start when he mentioned her name. But Miss Hermione Granger knew the secret ambition is to rid the world of evil and marking my own range of hair care potions. Good girl. In fact, he flipped her paper over. Full marks. Where is Miss Hermione Granger? Hermione raised a trembling hand. Excellent, beat Lockhart. Excellent. Take 10 points for Gryffindor. And so, to business. He bent down behind his desk and lifted a large covered cage onto it. Now, be warned. It is my job to arm you against the foulest creatures known to wizard kind. You may find yourselves facing your worst fears in this room. Know only that no charm can befall you whilst I am here. All I ask is that you remain calm. In spite of himself, Harry leaned around his pile of books for a better look at the cage. Lockhart placed a hand over the cover. Dean and Seamus had stopped laughing now. Neville was cowering in his front row seat. I must ask you not to scream, said Lockhart in a low voice. It might provoke them. Neville was cowering in his front row seat. I must ask you not to scream, said Lockhart in a low voice. It might provoke them. As the whole class held his breath, Lockhart whipped up to cover. Yes, he said dramatically. Freshly caught Cornish pixies. Seamus Finnegan couldn't control himself. He let out a snort of laughter which even Lockhart couldn't mistake for a scream of terror. Yes, started Seamus. Well, they're not very dangerous, are they? Seamus choked. Don't be so sure, said Lockhart, waggling a finger annoyingly at Seamus. Devilishly tricky.
Circumstances forced a hasty departure.
The pixies were electric.
French ones in missile technology. After that last incident,
Voice is so shrill, it was like listening to a lot of
Wouldn't it be safer to fly?
I'd be dead before I reach check. Besides, I need to get my merchandise out of the country.
Wrestling the bars and pulling
You, my
bizarre
friend, are
faces
worth
at
10
the
guns.
Right then, Lockhart said loudly. Let's see what you make of them. And he opened the cage. It was pandemonium. The pixies shot in every direction like rockets. Two of them seized Neville by the ears and lifted him into the air. Several shot straight through the window, showering the back row with broken glass. The rest proceeded to wreck the classroom more effectively than a rampaging rhino. They grabbed ink bottles and sprayed the class with them, shredding books and papers, torn pictures from the walls, upended the waste bin, grabbed bags and books and threw them out at a smashed window. Within minutes, half the class was sheltering under desks, and Neville was swinging from the candlebrier in the ceiling. Come on now, round them up, they're only pixies, Lockhart shouted. He rolled up his sleeves and grabbed his and bellowed, pesky pixie, good only. It had absolutely no effect. One of the pixies seemed Lockhart for it to go to. Five seconds of death, narrowly avoided being squashed by Neville. He fell a second later as he shouted, and the break gave way. The bell rang. The man rushed towards the exit. In the relative calm that followed, Lockhart straightened up, caught sight of Harry, Ron and Hermione, who were almost at the door, and said, Well, I'll ask you three just to nip the rest of them back into the cage. He swept past them and shut the door quickly behind him. Can you believe it, roared Ron, as one of the remaining pixies bit him painfully in the ear. He just wants to give us some hand-on experience, said Hermione, mobilizing two pixies at once with a clever freezing charm and stuffing back into their cage. Hands on, said Harry, who was trying to grab a pixie dancing out of reach with his tongue out. Fine, he didn't look what he was doing. Rubbish, said Hermione. He read his books, but all these amazing things he's done. He said something. Chapter 7. Harry spent a lot of time over the next few days watching out of sight with every sword you were rolling up down the corridor. Harder to avoid was Tony Reed. He seemed to have memorized Harry's time with him. Nothing seemed to give Colin a bigger thrill than to say, Alright, Harry, 6 or 7 times a day, I'm here. Hello, Colin. Back, however exasperated Harry sounded when he said it. Hedwig was still angry. His ask was hard work. Ron's warning was still malfunction. So hastening himself on Friday morning, shooting out of Ron's hand.
Fuck am I using? A goddamn gauge?
Squarely between the eyes.
Oh my gosh, you're the helicopter!
That fucking helicopter?
Shaken awake several hours early. With a light under the wood, Captain Harry there was a thin mist driven across the pink and gold sky. Now he was awake. He couldn't understand how he could have slept with the racket the birds were making. Oliver, Harry groaned.
Oh, shoot the helicopter!
Eyes were deep. On his training program. Grab your broom and let's go, said Wood politely. None of the other teams had started training. We're going to be the first to command for the field. Yawning and shivering slightly, Harry climbed out of bed and tried to find his Quidditch ropes. Good man, said Wood. Meet you on the pitch in 15 minutes. When he'd found his scarlet team robes and Harry scribbled a note to Ron explaining where he had gone, and went down the spiral staircase to the top. It was 2000 on his shoulder. He had just reached the portrait hole when there was a clatter behind him, and Colin Creevy came dashing down the spiral staircase, swinging at the air. Something clutched in his hand. I heard someone saying your name on the stairs, Harry. You're flying from here. The fellows, I wanted to show you. Harry Harry recognized its own. He was pleased to see that his photographic self was putting up a good fight and refusing to be dragged into view. As Harry watched, Lockhart gave up and slumped, panting against the white edge of the picture. Will you sign it? Said Colin eagerly. No, said Harry flatly, glancing around to check that the room was really deserted. Sorry, Colin, I'm in a hurry. Quidditch practice. Climb through the portrait hole. Oh wow, wait for me. I've never seen a Quidditch game
Tomas,
before.
you have protected and served me
Scrambled through the
well.
hole after him.
And now you must leave us before we reach the open seas. I will lower my personal
His face
launch.
shining with excitement.
Keep it, my friend.
You were the youngest
Token
house
of
player
my
in 100
gratitude.
years, weren't you, Harry?
Thank you.
Weren't you? Said
One
Colin,
more
pointing
request.
alongside him.
While I'm away,
Brilliant.
could you
Okay,
keep an
fine.
eye on Mercedes
Is
for
it
me?
easy?
I
Is
think
that
she
your
could
room?
look after
Is
herself,
that the best one
but
there
sure,
is?
I'll keep an eye out.
Harry didn't know
Gracias.
how to get rid of him. It was like
Hasta
having a
luego.
extremely
Adios,
talkative
amigo.
shadow. I don't really understand Quidditch, said Colin breathlessly. Is it true there are 4 balls? Fly around trying to pick up their brooms? Yes, Harry resigned to explain. It rules Quidditch. They're called bludgers. There are 2 beaters on each team, and Harry loves to beat the bludgers away from their side. Fred George Weasley are the Gryffindor beaters. And what are the other balls for? Colin asked, tripping down a couple of steps because he was gazing open-mouthed at Harry. Well, the bubble, the biggest red one, is the one that scores goals. 3 chasers on each team throw the ball to each other and try and get it through the goalpost at the end of the pitch. They're 3 long poles, and the 4th ball is the golden snitch, said Harry. And it's very small, very fast and difficult to catch. But that's what the seeker's got to do. Because the game of Quidditch doesn't end until the snitch has been caught. And whichever team seeker gets the snitch earns his team an extra 150 points. And you're Gryffindor seeker, aren't you? Said Colin in awe. Yes, said Harry, as they left the castle and started across the 2 drenched grass. And as a keeper too, he guards the goalposts. That's it, really. But Colin didn't stop questioning Harry all the way down the sloping lawns to the Quidditch pitch. Harry only shook him off when he reached the changing rooms. Colin called after him in a piping voice. I'll go and get a good seat, Harry. And he hurried off to the stands. The rest of the Gryffindor team were already changing in the room. Wood was the only person who looked truly awake. Fred George Weasley was sitting, puffy-eyed and tousled-headed, next to 4th year Alicia Spinnet, who seemed to be nodding off against the wall behind her. Her fellow chasers, Katie Bell and Angelina Johnson, were yawning side by side opposite them. There you are, Harry. What kept you? Said Wood briskly. Now, I wanted a quick talk with you all before we actually get onto the pitch, because I spent the summer devising a whole new training program, which I really think will make all the difference. Wood was holding up a large diagram of a Quidditch pitch, on which were drawn many lines, arrows and crosses in different coloured inks. He took out his wand, tapped the board, and the arrows began to wiggle over the diagram tablets as Wood launched into a speech about his new tactics. Fred Weasley's head drooped right onto Alicia's Spinnet's shoulder, and he began to snore. The first board took nearly 20 minutes to explain, but there was another board under that, and a third under that one. Harry sank into a stupor as Wood droned on. So, said Wood at long last, jerking Harry from a wistful fantasy about what he could be eating for breakfast at this very moment under the castle. Is that clear? Any questions? I've got a question, Oliver, said George, who had woken all the stars. Why couldn't you have told us all this yesterday when we were awake? Wood wasn't pleased. Now listen here, you lot, he said, glowering at them all. We should have won the Quidditch Cup last year. We're easily the best team, but unfortunately, owing to circumstances beyond our control, Harry shivered guiltily in his seat. He had been unconscious in the hospital for the final match of the previous year, meaning that Gryffindor had been a player short and suffered their worst defeat in 300 years. Wood took a moment to regain control of himself. Their last defeat was clearly still torturing him. So this year, we trained harder than ever before. Okay, let's go. Our new theories about practice. Wood shouted, seizing his broomstick and leading the way out of the changing rooms. Stiff-legged and still yawning, his team followed. They had been in the changing room so long that the sun was up properly now, although remains of mist hung over the grass in the stadium. As Harry walked to the pitch, he saw Ron and Hermione sitting in the stands. Aren't you finished yet? Ron incredulously. Haven't even started, said Harry, looking jealous at the toast and marmalade Ron and Hermione.
Oh my god,
Great. He's been teaching us new moves. He mounted his broomstick and kicked at the ground, soaring up into the air. The cool morning air whipped his face, making him far more effective than a woodstock talk. It felt wonderful to be back in the Quidditch pit. He soared right around the stadium at full speed, racing for George. What's that funny clicking noise? Called Fred as they hurtled around the corner. Harry looked into the stands. Colin was sitting in one of the highest seats, with camera raised, taking picture after picture. The sound strangely magnified the deserted stadium. Look this way, Harry. This way, he cried shrilly. Who's that? Said Fred.
Hey, sweetie.
Will you ever go?
What are you doing,
Well, you're a simple breakfast. It's do you care?
Oh, good sleepover?
I prayed over 4 times.
Grandma is very confused.
Who's that? Said Fred. No idea, Harry lied, putting on a spur to speed that took him as far away as possible from Colin. What's going on? Said Fred, frowning, as he skimmed through the air towards him. Why is that Bertie here taking pictures? I don't like it. He could be a Slytherin spy trying to find out about our new training program. He's in Gryffindor, said Harry quickly. And the Slytherins don't need a spy, Oliver, said George. What makes you say that? Said Wood testily. Because they're here in person, said George, pointing. Several people in green robes were walking onto the pitch, broomsticks in their hands. I don't believe it, Wood hissed in outrage. I booked the pitch for today. We'll see about this. Wood shot towards the ground, landing rather harder than he meant to in his anger, staggering slightly as he dismounted. Harry, Fred and George followed. Flint, Wood bellowed at the Slytherin captain. This is our practice time. We got up specially. You can clear off now. Arthur's Flint was even larger than Wood. He had a look of trollish cunning on his face as he replied. Plenty of room for us all, Wood. Angelina, Alicia and Katie had come over too. There were no girls on the Slytherin team, who stood shoulder to shoulder, facing the Gryffindors, leering to a man. I booked the pitch, said Wood, positively spitting with rage. I booked it. Ah, said Flint. I've got a specially signed note here from Professor Snape. I, Professor S. Snape, give the Slytherin team permission to practice today on the Quidditch pitch, owing to the need to train their new seeker. You've got a new seeker, said Wood, distracted. Where? And from behind the six large figures before them came a stench with a smaller ball, smirking all over his pale, haunted face. It was Draco Malfoy. Aren't you Lucius Malfoy's son? Said Fred, looking at Malfoy with dislike. Funny you should mention Draco's father, said Flint, as the whole Slytherin team smiled still more broadly. Let me show you the generous gift he's made to the Slytherin team. All 7 of them held out their broomsticks, 7 highly polished, brand new handles, and 7 sets of fine gold lettering spelling the words Nimbus 2001 gleamed on the Gryffindor's noses in the early morning sun. Very latest model. Only came out last month, said Flint carelessly, flicking a speck of dust from the end of his own. I believe it outstrips the old 2000 series by a considerable amount. As for the old clean sweeps, he smiled nastily at Fred and George, who were both clutching clean sweep fives, sweeps the board with them. None of the Gryffindor team could think of anything to say for a moment. Malfoy was smirking so broadly, cold eyes were reduced to slits. Oh look, said Flynn, a pitch invasion. Ron and Hermione were crossing the grass to see what was going on. What's happened? Ron asked Harry. Why aren't you playing? What's he doing here? He was looking at Malfoy, taking and slivering with his robes. I'm the new slivering seeker, Weasley, said Malfoy smugly. Everyone's just been admiring the brooms my father's bought our team. Ron gaped and opened mouth at the seventh superb broomstick in front of him. Good, aren't they? Said Malfoy smoothly. But perhaps the Gryffindor team will be able to raise some gold and get new brooms too. You could raffle off those clean sweep fives. I expect a museum would bid for them. The Slytherin team howled with laughter. At least no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in,
I got
said
us some
Hermione
cannons in the
sharply.
trunk.
They got
Holy
it with pure
shit,
talent.
where'd you get all this stuff?
The smuggler
Let's save it
Malfoy's
for a
face
rainy
faded.
day.
No one asked for your opinion. He stood
Like
a little mudflustered.
yeah,
He spat.
I like
Harry knew
it.
at once that Malfoy had said something really bad, because there was an instant uproar at his words. Flint had to dive in front of Malfoy to stop Fred and George jumping on him. Alicia shrieked, "How dare you!" And Ron plunged his hand into his robes, pulled out his wand, yelling, "You'll pay for that one, Malfoy," and pointed it furiously under Flint's arm at Malfoy's face. A loud bang echoed around the stadium. An ejected green light shot out of the wrong end of Ron's
Don't
wand,
worry, Tommy.
hitting him
I'll
into the
cover
stomach
you.
and sending him reeling backwards onto the grass. Ron, are you all right? Squealed Hermione. Ron opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, he gave an almighty belch, and several slugs dribbled out of his mouth into his lap. The Slytherin team were paralyzed with laughter. Flint was doubled up, hanging on to his new broomstick for support. Malfoy was on all fours, banging the ground with his fist. The Gryffindors were gathered around Ron, who kept belching large, glistening slugs.
This way.
Wow, Lance. Wow. I can't save him from his own
Cannons in
stupidity.
the trunk. Holy shit.
Large, glistening slugs. Nobody seemed to want to touch him. We'd better get to Hagrid's. It's nearest, said Harry to
Don't worry,
Hermione,
Tommy.
who looked directly and carried Ron by the arms. What happened, Harry? What happened? Is he ill? But you can cure him, can't you? Colin had run down from his seat and was now dancing alongside them. This the pitch. Ron gave a huge heave and more slowly opened on his front. Oh, said Colin, fascinated and raising his hand. Hold him still, Harry. Get out of the way, Colin, said Harry angrily. He and Hermione supported Ron out of the stadium and across the grounds towards the edge of the forest. Nearly there, Ron, said Hermione, as the gamekeeper's cabin came into view. You'll be alright in a minute. Almost there. They were already 20 feet of Hagrid's house when the front door opened. But it wasn't Hagrid who emerged. Gilderoy Lockhart, wearing robes hair to nose today, came striding out. Quick, behind here, Harry hissed, throwing Ron behind a nearby bush. Hermione followed, somewhat reluctantly. It's a simple matter if you know what you're doing, Lockhart was saying loudly to Hagrid. If you need help, you know where I am. I'll let you have a copy of my book. I'm surprised you haven't already got one. I'll sign one tonight and send it over. Well, goodbye, and he strode away towards the castle. Harry waited until Lockhart was out of sight, then pulled Ron out of the book and went down to the front door, then knocked urgently. Hagrid appeared at once, looking very troubled, but his expression brightened when he saw who it was. Been wondering if you'd come to see me. Come in, come in. Or you might have been Professor Lockhart back again. Here's the fire, leading Ron into the one-room cabin, which had an enormous bed in one corner, a fire crackling merrily in another. Hagrid didn't seem perturbed by Ron's side problem, which Harry hastily explained as he lowered Ron into a chair. "There are things," he said cheerfully, pointing a large copper basin
Hey,
in front
Tommy,
of him.
can my room
"Get
have a
all
view
up,
of the
Ron.
bay?
I don't think there's anything to do except wait for it to stop," said Hermione anxiously, watching Ron bend over the basin. That's a difficult curse to work out at the best of times. With a broken one, Hagrid was bustling around, making them giggle. He swore out, bang, was slobbering over Harry. What did Lockhart want for you, Hagrid? Harry asked, scratching Fang's ears. Give me advice on getting kelpies out of the well, growled Hagrid, moving it off like a root skirt on the table. Set down teapots, like I don't know, banging on a dusty pan sheet pan. If one word of it was true, I can't tell you. It was unlike Hagrid to criticise a Hogwarts teacher, and Harry looked at him in surprise. My name said he was somewhat higher than usual. Hagrid became a bit unfair. Mr. Dumbledore obviously thought he was the best man for the job. He was the only man for the job, said Hagrid, offering a plate of coffee, following pot squelchingly into a basin. And I mean the only one. Getting very difficult to find anyone for the dark arts job. People aren't too keen to take it on, you see. They're starting to think it's jinx. No one's lasted long for a while now. So tell me, look what you've done, jerking his chair. Who was trying to curse?
I trusted you, Tommy.
Malfoy called to mind something. It must have been really bad, because
I would
everyone
have had you, man.
It was bad, said Ron hoarsely, merging over the tabletop, looking pale and sweaty. Malfoy called out one line, Hagrid. Ron dived out of sight again, as a fresh wave of slugs made their appearance. Hagrid, he did, he did, she said. But I don't know what it means. I could tell it was really rude, of course. It's about the most insulting thing he could think of, gasped Ron, coming back up. Mudbloods are a really foul name for someone who was Muggle-born. You know, non-magic parents. There are some wizards, like Malfoy's family, who think they're better than everyone else because they're what people call pure blood.
Oh, we gotta redecorate this place. We gotta make it look older. I can't stand this look.
Tommy, what do you say? What do you say we put a bar in the...
You're my lawyer, Rosenberg, not my interior decorator. Got it? Listen to me. The time to take over this town is now. It's all out there waiting for us.
We need to start seizing territory. And let Vice City know we're the new players in town. You know what I'm saying?
What you need is a legitimate front, Tommy. Real estate. It's never done me no harm.
We need to start using some muscle, or we can kiss all that hard work goodbye. Local business know Diaz is dead, and they're refusing to pay protection.
Oh, we could try bribery.
Bribery? Screw bribery. I'll show you how to make them scared. I'll be back here in 5 minutes.
Slugs hit in the basin. But maybe it was a good thing your one backfired. I expect Lucius Malfoy would have come marching up to the school if you'd cursed his son. At least you're not in trouble. Harry would have pointed out that trouble can become much worse than having slugs pouring out of you. But he didn't. Hagrid sprinkled coffee and cemented his balls together. Harry, said Hagrid suddenly, as though struck by a sudden thought. I've got a bone to pick with you. I've heard you've been given signed photos. How can I have got one? Furious, Harry wrenched his teeth apart. I have not been in their signed photos, he said hotly. If Lockhart still putting that about, but then he saw that Hagrid was laughing. I'm only joking, he said, patting Harry gently on the back and sending him face first into the table. I knew you had. I told Lockhart you did. You didn't know. You were famous to him without trying. Bet you didn't like that, said Harry, sticking up over his chin. Don't think he did, said Hagrid, his eyes twinkling. And then I told him I'd never read one of these books, and he decided to go. Triple topping, Ron, he added, as Ron reappeared. No thanks, said Ron weakly. Better than risky it. Let me see what I've been growing, said Hagrid, as Harry and Hermione finished along with their team. In a small vegetable garden in Hagrid's house were a dozen of the largest pumpkins Harry had ever seen. Each was the size of a large olive. Getting on well, aren't they? Said Hagrid happily. But a Halloween feast should be big enough for them. What have you been feeding them? Said Harry. Hagrid looked over his shoulder to check that they were alone. Well, I've been giving them, you know, a bit of help. Harry noticed Hagrid's flowery pink umbrella leaning against the back wall of the cabin. Harry had had reason to believe before now that this umbrella was not all overlooked. In fact, he had the strong impression that Hagrid's old school was concealed inside it. Hagrid wasn't supposed to use magic. He had been expelled from Hogwarts in his 3rd year, but Harry had never found out why. Any mention of the matter, and theories for it now become mysterious and death until the subject was changed. I suppose, said Hermione, halfway between disapproval and amusement. Well, you've done a good job on it. That's what did it, said Hagrid, holding it wrong. He looked sideways at Harry. Beard twitching. Said she was just looking around the grounds. I reckon she was hoping she might run into someone else at my house. He winked at Harry. If you asked me, she wouldn't have said no to a sign. Oh, shut up, said Harry. Ron snorted with laughter, and the ground was sprayed with slugs. Watch it, Hagrid roared, pulling Ron away from his precious pumpkins. It was nearly done. Harry had only had one bite of treacle toffee since dawn. He was keen to go back to school to eat. They said goodbye to Hagrid and walked back up to the castle. Occasionally, only bringing two very small slugs. They had barely set foot at the hall entrance when a voice rang. There you are, Potter. Weasley. Professor McGonagall was walking towards them, looking slow. You'll both do your detentions this evening. What are we doing, Professor? Said Ron nervously, suppressing a burp. You'll be polishing the silver in the trophy room, Mr. Filch, said Professor McGonagall. And no magic, Weasley. Elbow grease. Ron gulped. Oliver Still, the caretaker, was alone with every student in the school. And you, Potter, will be helping Professor Lockhart answer his fan, said Professor McGonagall. Oh no, can I go and do the trophy room too? Said Harry desperately. Certainly not, said Professor McGonagall, raising her eyebrows. Professor Lockhart requested you particularly. 8 o'clock sharp. Both Harry and Ron slouched into the great hall and staked the deepest foot, Hermione behind them, wearing up. Well, you did break school rules, Harry didn't fancy the shepherd's tires on the team. Both he and Ron felt they had worse still. You'll have me there all night, said Ron heavily. No magic. There must be about 100 cups in that room. I'm no good at muggle cleaning. I'd swap any time, said Harry hollowly. I've got loads of practice with the Dursleys, answering Lockhart's fan mail. He'll be a nightmare. Saturday afternoon seemed to melt away. What seemed like no time, it was 5 minutes to 8, and Harry was dragging his feet along the second floor corridor to Lockhart's office. He gritted his teeth and knocked. The door flew open at once. Lockhart beat down here. Ah, here's the scallywag, he said. Come in, Harry, come in. Shining brightly forwards by the light of many candles were countless framed photographs of Lockhart. He had even signed a few of them. Another large pile lay on his desk. You can address the envelopes, Lockhart told Harry, as though this was a huge treat. This first one's to Gladys Gundian. Bless her, huge fan of mine. The minutes snailed by. Harry let Lockhart's voice wash over him, occasionally saying, and right, and yeah. Now and then he caught a phrase like, fame's a fickle friend, Harry, or celebrity is as celebrity does. Remember that. The candles burned lower and lower, making the light dance over the many vivid faces of Lockhart watching him. Harry moved his aching hand over what felt like the 1,000th envelope, writing out Veronica Smelfy's address. It must be nearly time to leave, Harry thought miserably. Please let it be nearly time. And then he heard something quite apart from the spitting of the dying candles and Lockhart's prattling about his fans. It was a voice to chill the bone marrow, a voice of breathtaking, ice-cold venom. Come to me, let me rip you, let me tear you, let me kill you. Harry gave a huge jump, and a large lilac blot appeared on Veronica Smithy's street. What? He said loudly. I know, said Lockhart. 6 solid months at the top of the bestsellers list. Broke all records. No, said Harry frantically. That voice. Sorry, said Lockhart, looking puzzled. What voice? That voice that said... Didn't you hear it? Lockhart was looking at Harry in high astonishment. What are you talking about, Harry? Perhaps you're getting a little drowsy. Great Scott, look at the time. We've been here nearly 4 hours. I never would have believed it. The time's flown, hasn't it? Harry didn't answer. He was straining his ears to hear the voice again, but there was no sound now, except for Lockhart, telling him he mustn't expect to treat like this every time he got detention. Feeling dazed, Harry left. It was so late that the Gryffindor common room was almost empty. Harry went straight up to the dormitory. Ron wasn't back yet. Harry pulled on his pajamas, got into bed and waited. Half an hour later, Ron arrived, nursing his right arm and bringing a strong smell of polish into the darkened room. My muscles have all seized up, he groaned, sinking into his bed. 14 times he made me buff up that Quidditch cup before he was satisfied. And then I had another slug attack all over the special award for services to the school. It took ages to shift to slime. How was it with Lockhart? Keeping his voice low so not to wake Neville, Dean and Seamus, Harry told Ron exactly what he had heard. And Lockhart said he couldn't hear it, said Ron. Harry could see him frowning in the moonlight. Do you think he was lying? I don't get it. Even someone invisible would have been able to open the door. I know, said Harry, lying back in his four-poster and staring at the canopy above him. I don't get it either.
Without the ones like you working tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. No matter your industry, Granger's here for you with professional-grade supplies. Call, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Later, Avery.
I don't get it either. Chapter 8. The Death Day Party. October arrived, spreading a damp chill over the grounds and into the castle. Madame Pomfrey, the matron, was kept busy by a sudden spat of colds among the staff and students. Her peppercup potion worked instantly, though it left the drinker smoking at the ears for several hours afterwards. Ginny Weasley, who had been looking peaky, was bullied into taking some by Percy. The steam pouring from underneath her vivid hair gave the impression that her whole head was on fire. Raindrops the size of bullets haunted the castle windows for the days on end. The lake rose, the flower beds turned into muddy streams, and Hagrid's pumpkins swelled to the size of garden sheds. Potterwood's enthusiasm for regular training sessions, however, was not dampened, which was why Harry was to be found late one stormy Saturday afternoon, a few days before Halloween, returning to Gryffindor Tower drenched to the skin and splattered with mud. Even aside from the rain or wind, it hadn't been a happy practice session. Fred and George, who had been spying on the Slytherin team, had seen for themselves the speed of those new Nimbus 2001s. They reported that the Slytherin team were no more than 7 greenish blurs, shooting through the air like jump jets. As Harry squelched along the deserted corridor, he came across somebody who looked just as preoccupied as he was. Nearly Headless Nick, the ghost of Gryffindor Tower, was staring morously out of a window, muttering under his breath. Don't fulfill their requirements. Half an inch, if that. Hello, Nick, said Harry. Hello, hello, said Nearly Headless Nick, starting and looking around. He wore a dashing, plumed hat on his long curly hair, and a tunic with a ruff, which concealed the fact that his neck was almost completely severed. He was pale as smoke, and Harry could see right through him to the dark sky and torrential rain outside. You look troubled, young Potter, said Nick, folding the transparent letter as he spoke and tucking it inside his doublet. So do you, said Harry. Ah, Nearly Headless Nick waved an elegant hand. A matter of no importance. It's not as though I really wanted to join. Thought I'd apply, but apparently I don't fulfill requirements. In spite of his airy tone, there was a look of great bitterness on his face. But you would think, wouldn't you, he erupted suddenly, pulling the letter back out of his pocket, that getting hit 45 times in the neck with a blunt axe would qualify you to join the Headless Hunt. Oh, yes, said Harry, who was obviously supposed to agree. I mean, nobody wishes more than I do. They had been all done quick and clean, and my head had come off properly. I mean, it would have saved me a great deal of pain and ridicule. However, Nearly Headless Nick shook his letter open and read furiously. We can only accept huntsmen whose heads have parted company with their bodies. You will appreciate that it would be impossible otherwise for members to participate in hunt activities such as horseback head juggling and head polo. It is with the greatest regret, therefore, that I must inform you that you do not fulfill our requirements. With very best wishes, Sir Patrick Delaney, Podmore. Fuming, Nearly Headless Nick stuffed the letter away. Half an inch of skin and a sign holding my neck on. Harry, most people would think that's good and beheaded. It's not enough for Sir probably decapitated Podmore. Nearly Headless Nick took several breaths and then said in a far calmer tone, So, what's bothering you? Anything I can do? No, said Harry. Not unless you know where we can get 7 free Nimbus 2001s for our match against Slyth. The rest of Harry's sentence was drowned by a high-pitched mewing from somewhere near his ankles. He looked down and found himself gazing into a pair of lamp-like yellow eyes. It was Miss Norris, the skeletal grey cat, who was used by the caretaker, Argus Filch, as a sort of deputy in the endless battle against students. You'd better get out of here, Harry, said Nick quickly. Filch isn't in a good mood. He's got flu, and some third years accidentally plastered frog brains all over the ceiling of Dungeon 5. He's been cleaning all morning, and if he sees you dripping mud all over the place... Right, said Harry, backing away from the accusing stare of Miss Norris, but not quickly enough. Drawn to the spot by a mysterious power that seemed to connect him with his foul cat, Argus Filch burst suddenly through a tapestry to Harry's right, wheezing and looking wildly about for the rule-breaker. There was a thick tartan scarf bound around his head, and his nose was unusually purple. "Filth!" he shouted, his jowls a-quiver, his eyes popping alarmingly as he pointed at the muddy puddle that had rippled from Harry's Quidditch robes.
You call this handling it?
"Mess and muck everywhere. I've had enough of it. I tell you, follow me, Potter." But Harry waved a gloomy goodbye to nearly headless Nick and followed Filch back downstairs, doubling the number of muddy footprints on the floor. Harry had never been inside Filch's office before. It was a place most students avoided. The room was dingy and windowless, lit by a single oil lamp dangling from the low ceiling. A faint smell of fried fish lingered about the place. Wooden filing cabinets stood around the walls. From their labels, Harry could see that they contained details of every pupil Filch had ever punished. Fred and George Weasley had an entire drawer to themselves. A highly polished collection of chains and manacles hung on the wall behind Filch's desk. It was common knowledge that he was always begging Dumbledore to let him suspend students by their ankles from the ceiling. Filch grabbed a quill from a pot on his desk and began shuffling around looking for parchment. "Done," he muttered furiously. "Great sizzling dragon bogies, frog brains, rat intestines. I've had enough of it. Make an example. Where's the form? Yes." He retrieved a large roll of parchment from his desk drawer and stretched it out in front of him, dipping his long black quill into the ink pot. "Name, Harry Potter. Crime, it was only a bit of mud," said Harry. "It's only a bit of mud to you, boy. Why, to me, it's an extra hour scrubbing," shouted Filch, a drip shivering unpleasantly at the end of his bulbous nose. "Crime, befouling the castle. Suggested sentence," dabbing at his stringed nose. Filch squinted unpleasantly at Harry, who waited with bated breath for his sentence to fall. But Filch lowered his quill. There was a great bang on the ceiling of his office, which made the oil lamp rattle. "Peeves!" Filch roared, flinging down his quill in a transport of rage. "I'll get you this time. I'll have you." Without a backwards glance at Harry, Filch ran flat-footed from the office, Miss Norris shrieking alongside him. Peeves was a school poltergeist, a grinning, airborne menace who lived to cause havoc and distress. Harry didn't much like Peeves, but couldn't help feeling grateful for his timing. Hopefully, whatever Peeves had done, and it sounded as though he'd wrecked something very big this time, would distract Filch from Harry. Thinking that he should probably wait for Filch to come back, Harry sank into a moth-eaten chair next to the desk. There was only one thing on it apart from his half-completed form, a large glossy purple envelope with silver lettering on the front. With a quick glance at the door to check that Filch wasn't on his way back, Harry picked up the envelope and read, "Quick spell, a correspondence course in beginner's magic." Intrigued, Harry flicked the envelope open and pulled out the sheaf of parchment inside. More curly silver writing on the front page said, "Fill out a step in the world of modern magic. Find yourself making excuses not to perform simple spells. Ever been taunted for your woeful wand work? There is an answer. Quick Spell is an all-new, fail-safe, quick result, easy learn course. Hundreds of witches and wizards have benefited from the Quick Spell method. Madam Z. Nettles of Topsham writes, "I had no memory for incantations, and my potions were a family joke. Now after a Quick Spell course, I am the centre of attention at parties, and friends beg for the recipe of my Giltanian solution." Warlock DJ Prod of Disbury says, "My wife used to sneer at my feeble charms, but 1 month into your fabulous Quick Spell course, I succeeded in turning her into a yak. Thank you, Quick Spell." Fascinated, Harry thumbed through the rest of the envelope's contents. Why on earth did Filch want a Quick Spell course? Did this mean he wasn't a proper wizard? Harry was just reading Lesson 1, Holding Your Wand, some useful tips, when shuffling footsteps outside told him Filch was coming back. Stuffing the parchment back into the envelope, Harry threw it back onto the desk just as the door opened. Filch was looking triumphant. That vanishing cabinet was extremely valuable, he was saying gleefully to Miss Norris. "We'll have Peeves out this time, my sweet." His eyes fell on Harry, and then darted to the Quickspell envelope which, Harry realised too late, was lying 2 feet away from where it had started. Filch's pasty face went brick red. Harry braced himself for a tidal wave of fury. Filch hobbled across to his desk, snatched up the envelope, and threw it in the drawer. Did you read?" he stuttered. "No," Harry lied quickly. Filch's knobbly hands were twisting together. If I thought you'd read my private, not that it's mine, for a friend, but that as it may, however. Harry was staring at him, alarmed. Filch had never looked madder. His eyes were popping. A tick was going on in one of his peachy cheeks, and a tartan scarf didn't help. Very well, go, and don't breathe a word. Not that, however, if you didn't breathe, go now, I have no right. Go. Amazed at his luck, Harry sped out of the office, up the corridor, and back upstairs. To escape from Filch's office without punishment was probably some kind of school record. Harry, did it work? Nearly Headless Nick came gliding out of the classroom. Behind him, Harry could see the wreckage of a large black and gold cabinet which appeared to have been dropped from a great height. I persuaded Peeves to crash it right over Filch's office, said Nick eagerly. Thought it might have distracted him. Was that you? Said Harry gratefully. Yeah, it worked. I didn't even get a detention. Thanks, Nick. They set off up the corridor together. Nearly Headless Nick, Harry noticed, was still holding Sir Patrick's rejection letter. I wish there was something I could do for you about the Headless Hunt, Harry said. Nearly Headless Nick stopped in his tracks, and Harry walked right through him. He wished he hadn't. It was like stepping through an icy shower. But there is something you can do for me, said Nick excitedly. Harry, would I be asking too much? But no, you wouldn't want. What is it? Said Harry. Well, this Halloween will be my 500th death day, said Nearly Headless Nick, drawing himself up and looking dignified. Oh, said Harry. Not sure whether he should look sorry or happy about this. Right. I'm holding a party down in one of the roomier dungeons. Friends will be coming from all over the country. It would be much an honour if you would attend. Mr. Weasley and Miss Granger would be most welcome too, of course. But I dare say you'd rather go to the school feast. He watched Harry on the tetherhooks. No, said Harry quickly. I'll come. My dear boy, Harry Potter, at my death day party. And he hesitated, looking excited. Do you think you could possibly mention to Sir Patrick how very frightening and impressive you find me? Of course, said Harry. Nearly Headless Nick beamed at him. A death day party, said Hermione keenly, when Harry had changed at last and joined her and Ron in the common room. I bet there aren't very many living people who can say they've been to one of those. It'll be fascinating. Why would anyone want to celebrate the day they died, said Ron, who was halfway through his potions homework and grumpy. Sounds dead depressing to me. Rain was still lashing the windows, which were now inky black, but inside all looked bright and cheerful. The firelight glowed over the countless squashy armchairs where people sat reading, talking, doing homework, or, in the case of Fred and George Weasley, trying to find out what happened if you fed a filibuster firework to a salamander. Fred had rescued the brilliant orange fire-dwelling lizard from a care of magic creatures class, and it was now smouldering gently on a table surrounded by a knot of curious people. Harry was on the point of telling Ron and Hermione about Filch and the Quickspell course, and suddenly the suddenly whizzed into the air, emitting loud sparks and bangs that whirled wildly around the room. The sight of Percy bellowing himself hoarse at Fred and George, the spectacular display of tangerine stars showering from the salamander's mouth, and his escape into the fire with accompanying explosions drove both Filch and the Quickspell impulse from Harry's mind. By the time Halloween arrived, Harry was regretting his rash promise to go to the Death Day party. The rest of the school were happily anticipating their Halloween feast. The Great Hall had been decorated with the usual live bands. Hagrid's vast pumpkin had been carved into lanterns, large enough for 3 men to sit in, and there were rumours that Dumbledore had booked a troupe of dancing skeletons for the entertainment. A promise is a promise, Hermione reminded Harry bossily. You said you'd go to the Death Day party. So at 7 o'clock, Harry, Ron, and Hermione walked straight past the doorway to the packed Great Hall, which was glistening with lights and candles, and directed their steps instead towards the dungeons. The passageway leading to Nearly Headless Nick's party had been lined with candles too, though the effect was far from cheerful. These were long, thin, jet-black tapers, all burning bright blue, casting a dim, ghostly light even over their own living faces. The temperature dropped with every step they took. As Harry shivered and drew his robes tightly around him, he heard what sounded like 1,000 fingernails scraping an enormous black hole. Is that supposed to be music? Ron whispered. They turned a corner and saw Nearly Headless Nick standing at a doorway.
Now I got
Black
the
velvet
attention.
drapes. My dear friend, he said mournfully, Welcome, welcome, so pleased you could come. He swept off his plumed hat and bowed them inside. It was an incredible sight. The dungeon was full of hundreds of pearly white, translucent people, mostly drifting around a crowded dance floor, waltzing to the dreadful, quivering sound of 30 musical swords, played by an orchestra on a black-draped platform. A chandelier overhead blazed midnight blue with 1,000 more black candles. Their breath rose in a mist before them. It was like stepping into a freezer. Shall we have a look around? Harry suggested, wanting to warm up his feet. Careful not to walk through anyone, said Ron nervously, and they set off around the edge of the dance floor. They passed a group of gloomy nuns, a ragged man wearing chains, and a fat friar, a cheerful Hufflepuff ghost, who was talking to a knight with an arrow sticking out of his forehead. Harry wasn't surprised to see that the bloody Baron, a gaunt, staring, slithering ghost covered in silver bloodstains, was being given a wide berth by the other ghosts. "Oh no," said Hermione, stopping abruptly. Turn back. I don't want to talk to Moaning Myrtle." "Who?" said Harry, as they backtracked quickly. "She haunts the girls' toilet on the first floor," said Hermione. "She haunts a toilet?" "Yes, it's been out of order all year, because she keeps having tantrums at the bloody I never went in there anyway, if I could avoid it. It's awful trying to go to a loo with her wailing at you." "Look, food," said Ron. On the other side of the dungeon was a long table, also covered in black velvet. They approached it eagerly, but the next moment had stopped in their tracks, horrified. The smell was quite disgusting. Large, rotten fish were laid on handsome silver platters. Cakes burned charcoal black were heaped on salvers. There was a great maggoty haggis, a slab of cheese covered in furry green mould, and in pride of place, an enormous grey cake in the shape of a tombstone, with tar-like icing forming the words, Sir Nicholas Hippensy, died 31st of October, 1492. Harry watched amazed as a portly ghost approached the table, crouched low, and walked through it, his mouth held wide so that it passed through one of the stinking salmon. "Can you taste it if you walk through it?" Harry asked him. "Almost," said the ghost sadly, and he drifted away. "I expect they let it rot to give it a stronger flavour," said Hermione knowledgeably, pinching her nose and leaning closer to look at the putrid haggis. "Can we move? I feel sick," said Ron. They had barely turned around, however, when a little man swooped suddenly from under the table and came to a halt in mid-air before them. "Hello, Peeves," said Harry cautiously. Unlike the ghosts around them, Peeves the poltergeist was the very reverse of pale and transparent. He was wearing a bright orange party hat, a revolving bow tie, and a broad grin on his wide, wicked face. "Nibbles," he said sweetly, offering them a small bowl of peanuts covered in fungus. "No thanks," said Hermione. "I heard you talking about poor Myrtle," said Peeves, his eyes dancing. "Rude you was about poor Myrtle." He took a deep breath and bellowed, "Oi, Myrtle!" "Oh no, Peeves, don't tell her what I said. She'll be really upset." Hermione whispered frantically, "I didn't mean it. I don't mind her. Hello, Myrtle." The small ghost glided over. She had the glummest face Harry had ever seen, half hidden behind lank hair and thick, pearly spectacles. "What?" she said sulkily. "How are you, Myrtle?" said Hermione in a falsely brave voice.
Fucking car.
"See you out there." Myrtle sniffed. "Miss Granger was just talking about you," said Peeves slyly, in Myrtle's ear. "Just saying how nice you look tonight," said Hermione, glaring at Peeves. Myrtle eyed Hermione suspiciously. "You're making fun of me," she said, silver tears welling rapidly in her small see-through eyes. "No, honestly, didn't I just say how nice Myrtle's looking?" said Hermione, nudging Harry and Ron painfully.
Damn.
"Oh yeah, she did." "Don't lie to me," Myrtle gasped, tears now flooding down her face, while Peeves chuckled happily over her shoulder. "Do you think I don't know what people call me behind my back? Fat Myrtle, ugly Myrtle, miserable, moaning, moping Myrtle. You missed out Spotty," Peeves hissed in her ear. Moaning Myrtle burst into anguished sobs and fled from the dungeon. Peeves shot after her, pelting her with mouldy peanuts, yelling, "Spotty! Spotty!" "Oh dear," said Hermione sadly. Nearly Headless Nick now drifted towards them through the crowd. "Enjoying yourselves?" "Oh yes," they lied. "Not a bad turnout," said Nearly Headless Nick proudly. "The Wailing Widow came all the way from Kent. It's nearly time for my speech. I'd better go and warn the orchestra." The orchestra, however, stopped playing at that very moment. They and everyone else in the dungeon fell silent, looking around in excitement, as a haunting horn sounded. "Oh, here we go," said Nearly Headless Nick bitterly. Through the dungeon wall burst a dozen ghost horses, each ridden by a headless horseman. The assembly clapped wildly. Harry started to clap too, but stopped quickly at the sight of Nick's face. The horses galloped into the middle of the dance floor and halted, rearing and plunging, a large ghost in the front, whose bearded head was under his arm. Blowing the horn, leapt down, lifted his head high in the air so he could see over the crowd. Everyone laughed and strode over to Nearly Headless Nick, squashing his head back onto his neck. "Nick," he roared, "how are you? Head still hanging in there?" He gave a hearty guffaw and clapped Nearly Headless Nick on the shoulder. "Welcome, Patrick," said Nick stiffly. "Livens," said Sir Patrick, spotting Harry, Ron, Hermione, and giving a huge fake jump of astonishment, so that his head fell off again. The crowd howled with laughter. "Very amusing," said Nearly Headless Nick darkly. "Don't mind Nick," shouted Sir Patrick's head from the floor. "Still upset we won't let him join the hunt. But I mean to say, look at the fellow." "I think," said Harry hurriedly, and a meaningful look from Nick, "Nick's very frightening, and, yelled Sir Patrick's head. "Betty asked you to say that. If I could have everyone's attention, it's time for my speech," said Nearly Headless Nick loudly, striding towards the podium and climbing into an icy blue spotlight. "My late lamented lords, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great sorrow." But nobody heard much more. Sir Patrick and the rest of the Headless Hunt had just started a game of head hockey, and the crowd were turning to watch. Nearly Headless Nick tried vainly to recapture his audience, but gave up as Sir Patrick's head went sailing past him to loud cheers. Harry was very cold by now, not to mention hungry. "I can't stand much more of this," Ron muttered, his teeth chattering, as the orchestra ground back into action, and the ghosts swept back onto the dance floor. "Let's go," Harry agreed. They backed towards the door, nodding and beaming at everyone who looked at them, and a minute later were hurrying back up the passageway full of black candles. "Pudding might not be finished yet," said Ron hopefully, leading the way towards the steps to the entrance hall. And then Harry heard it. Rip. Tear. Kill. It was the same voice, the same cold, murderous voice he had heard in Lockhart's office. He stumbled to a halt, clutching at the stone wall, listening with all his might, looking around, squinting, up and down the dimly lit passageway. "Harry, what are you—" It's that voice again. "Shut up a minute." So hungry. For so long. "Listen," said Harry urgently, and Ron and Hermione froze, watching him. "Kill. Time to kill." The voice was growing fainter. Harry was sure it was moving away, moving upwards. A mixture of fear and excitement gripped him as he stared at the dark ceiling. How could it be moving upwards? Was it a phantom? To whom ceilings didn't matter? "This way," he shouted, and he began to run, up the stairs, into the entrance hall. It was no good. It was no good hoping to hear anything in here. The babble of talk from the Halloween feast was echoing out the great hall. Harry sprinted up the marble staircase to the first floor, Ron and Hermione clattering behind him. "Harry, what are we—" "Shh!" Harry strained his ears. Distantly, on the floor above, and growing fainter still, he heard the voice. "I smell blood. I smell blood." His stomach lurched. "It's going to kill someone," he shouted, and ignoring Ron and Hermione's bewildered faces, he ran up the next flight of steps, 3 at a time, trying to listen over his pounding footsteps. Harry hurtled around the whole of the second floor, Ron and Hermione panting behind him, not stopping until they turned the corner into the last deserted passage. "Harry, what's all this about?" said Ron, wiping sweat off his face. "I couldn't hear anything." But Hermione gave a sudden gasp, pointing down the corridor. "Look!" Something was shining through the ahead. They approached, slowly, squinting through the dark fog, but high words had been dabbed
No,
on
I
the wall
haven't, but I've
between
always
2
loved you.
windows, shimmering in the light cast by the flaming torches. "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware." "What's that thing hanging underneath?" said Ron, a slight quiver in his voice. As they edged nearer, Harry almost slipped over. There was a large puddle of water on the floor. Ron and Hermione grabbed him and they inched towards the message, eyes fixed on a dark shadow beneath it. All three of them realized what it was at once, and leapt backwards with a splash. Miss Norris, the caretaker's cat, was hanging by her tail from the taut bracket. She was stiff as a board, her eyes wide and staring. For a few seconds, they didn't move. Then Rod said, "Let's get out of here." "Should we try and help?" Harry began awkwardly. "Trust me," said Rod, "we don't want to be found here." But it was too late. A rumble, as though of distant thunder, told them that the feast had just ended. From either end of the corridor, where they stood, came the sound of hundreds of feet climbing the stairs, and the loud, happy talk of well-fed people. Next moment, students were crashing into the passage from both ends. The chatter, the bustle, the noise died suddenly, as the people in the front spotted the hanging cat. Harry, Ron, and Hermione stood alone, in the middle of the corridor. The silence fell among the mass of students, pressing forward to see the grisly sight. Then someone shouted through the quiet, "Enemies of the air, beware! You'll be next, mudbloods." It was Draco Malfoy. He had pushed to the front of the crowd, his cold eyes alive, his usual bloodless face flushed, as he grinned at the sight of the hanging, immobile cat. Chapter 9. The Writing on the Wall. "What's going on here? What's going on?" Attracted, no doubt, by Malfoy's shout, Argus Filch came shouldering his way through the crowd. Then he saw Miss Norris and fell back, clutching his face in horror. "My cat! My cat! What's happened to Miss Norris?" he shrieked, and his popping eyes fell on Harry. "You!" he screamed. You've murdered my cat! You've killed her! I'll kill you! Oh, Argus!" Dumbledore had arrived on the scene, followed by a number of other teachers. In seconds, he had swept past Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and detached Miss Norris from the torch bracket. "Come with me, Argus," he said to Filch. "You too, Mr. Potter, Mr. Weasley, and Miss Granger." Lockhart stepped forward eagerly. "My office is nearest, Headmaster. Just upstairs. Please feel free." "Thank you, Gilderoy," said Dumbledore. The silent crowd parted to let them pass. Lockhart, looking excited and important, hurried after Dumbledore. So did Professors McGonagall and Snape. As they entered Lockhart's darkened office, there was a flurry of movement across the walls. Harry saw several of Lockhart's in the pictures dodging out of sight, their hair in rollers. The real Lockhart lit the candles on his desk and stood back. Dumbledore laid Miss Norris on a polished surface and began to examine her. Harry, Ron, and Hermione exchanged tense looks and sank into chairs outside the pool of candlelight, watching. The tip of Dumbledore's long, crooked nose was barely an inch from Miss Norris's fur. He was looking at her closely through his half-moon spectacles, his long fingers gently prodding and poking. Professor McGonagall was bent almost as close. Her eyes narrowed. Snape loomed behind them, half in shadow, wearing a most peculiar expression. It was as though he was trying hard not to smile, and Lockhart was hovering around all of them, making suggestions. It was definitely a curse that killed her, probably the Transmogrifian torture. I've seen it. Oh, I'm lucky I wasn't there. I know the very counter-curse that would have saved her. Lockhart's comments were punctuated by Filch's dry, raking sobs. He slumped in a chair by the desk, unable to look at Miss Norris, his face in his hands. Much as he detested Filch, Harry couldn't help feeling a bit sorry for him, though not nearly as sorry as he felt for himself. If Dumbledore believed Filch, he would be expelled for sure. Dumbledore was now muttering strange words under his breath and tapping Miss Norris with his wand, but nothing happened. She continued to look as though she had been recently stuffed. "I remember something very similar happening in Oogadoogu," said Lockhart. "A series of attacks. The full story is in my autobiography. I was able to provide the townsfolk with various amulets, which cleared the matter up at once." The photographs of Lockhart on the walls were all nodding in agreement as he talked. One of them had forgotten to remove his hairnet. At last, Dumbledore straightened up. "She's not dead, Argus," he said softly. Lockhart stopped abruptly in the middle of counting the number of murders he had prevented. "Not dead," choked Filch, looking through his fingers at Miss Norris. "But why is she all stiff and frozen?" "She's been petrified," said Dumbledore. "Ah, I thought so," said Lockhart. "But how? I cannot say." "Ask him," shrieked Filch, turning his blotched and tear-stained face to Harry. "No second year could have done this," said Dumbledore firmly. It would take dark magic at the most advanced. He did it! He did it! Filch spat, his falchion pace purpling. You saw what he wrote on the wall? He found in my office. He knows I'm a... Filch's face worked horribly. He knows I'm a squib, he finished. I never touched Miss Norris, Harry said loudly, uncomfortably aware of everyone looking at him, including all the Lockharts on the walls. I don't even know what a squib is.
I see you later, big boy.
Whether you're tinkering in your garage or tackling big projects.
One looking at him, including all the Lockharts on the walls. I don't even know what a squib is. Rubbish, snarled Filch. He saw my quick spell letter. If I might speak, Headmaster, said Snape from the shadows, and Harry's sense of foreboding increased. He was sure nothing Snape had to say was going to be good for him. Potter and his friends may have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, he said, a slight sneer curling his mouth, as though he doubted it. But we do have a set of suspicious circumstances here. Why were they in the upstairs corridor at all? Why weren't they at the Halloween feast? Harry, Ron and Hermione all launched into an explanation about the Death Day party. There were hundreds of ghosts. They'll tell you we were there. But why not join the feast afterwards, said Snape, his black eyes glittering in the candlelight. Why go up to that corridor? Ron and Hermione looked at Harry. Because, Harry said, his heart thumping very fast. Something told him it would sound very far-fetched if he had told them he had been led there by a bodiless voice no one but he could hear. Because we were tired and wanted to go to bed, he said. Without any supper, said Snape, a triumphant smile flickering across his gaunt face. I didn't think ghosts provided food fit for living people at their parties. We weren't hungry, said Ron loudly, as his stomach gave a huge rumble. Snape's nasty smile widened. I suggest, Headmaster, that Potter is not being entirely truthful, he said. It might be a good idea if he was deprived of certain privileges until he is ready to tell us the whole story. I personally feel he should be taken up to the Gryffindor Quidditch team until he is ready to be honest. Really, Severus? Said Professor McGonagall sharply. I see no reason to stop the boy playing Quidditch. This cat wasn't hit over the head with a broomstick. There was no evidence at all that Potter has done anything wrong. Dumbledore was giving Harry a searching look. His twinkling light blue gaze made Harry feel as though he was being x-rayed. Innocent until proven guilty, Severus, he said firmly. Snape looked furious. So did Filch. My cat has been petrified, he shrieked, his eyes popping. I want to see some punishment. We will be able to take care of her, Argus, said Dumbledore patiently. Professor Sprout recently managed to procure some mandrakes. As soon as they have reached their full size, I will have a potion made which will